Hello, everyone. Welcome to Module 3 of our session on FLED Community Governance and Leadership Induction Program. Module 3 is dealing with the concept of volunteer or sustainable volunteer leadership. Sustainable volunteer leadership. We want to take a look at volunteer leadership and institutional responsibility. By the end of this module, you'll be able to understand the philosophy of volunteer leadership. You'll be able to distinguish between volunteer service from institutional exploitation. You'll be able to appreciate the responsibility of institutions to support volunteer leaders. And you will be able to build ethical and sustainable governance systems. Also, by the end of this session, the second part of this session will be dealing with what we call the developing the practical side of your first 100 days in office, first 100 days leadership roadmap. Let's begin by saying that community leadership is one of the noblest forms of public service. This is very important. Community leadership is one of the noblest forms of public service. Unlike elected public office or paid employment, leaders of community development institutions often serve without salaries or financial rewards. They volunteer their time, their knowledge, experience, and energy for the advancement of their communities. So the spirit of volunteerism has built schools, built roads, built health centers, provided scholarship schemes, markets, and countless development projects across Africa. And that's why Africa is so powerful, so unique. We are development-oriented people, community development-oriented people, particularly those of them in the southeast of Nigeria, they're community development-oriented. However, volunteer leadership should never mean that leaders must carry the burden of the community development entirely at their own personal expense. I would like to repeat this. It's not because you're volunteering, therefore you shall carry the burden of community development entirely at your own expense. There's a scripture that says, nobody goes to war at his own expense. To run community development association or union at the expense of the leaders financially is not good. So a healthy development, a healthy institution values both the willingness of its volunteers and its own responsibility to support them to deliver on the assignment. So let's take a look at what is volunteer leadership. What is volunteer leadership? Volunteer leadership is the voluntary commitment of one's time, ability, experience, and influence to advance the common good without serving primarily for personal financial gain. I'll repeat this because it's very important. We're asking the question, what is volunteer leadership? We're saying that volunteer leadership is a voluntary commitment of one's own time, ability, experience, influence to advance the common good without serving primarily for personal financial gain. So volunteer leadership is built on a few things. Number one, service. It's built on service, it's built on stewardship, it's built on integrity, it's built on responsibility, and it is built on love for the community. So volunteer leadership is not free labor. I repeat, volunteer leadership is not free labor. It is a purposeful public service. Volunteer leadership is not free labor, but it is a purposeful public service. Let's take a look at 5 principles of sustainable volunteer leadership. 5 principles of sustainable volunteer leadership. Principle number 1, leadership is service, not personal gain. Leadership is service, not personal gain. Now, what it means is that community leadership is a trust. Community leadership is a trust. So leaders should avoid abuse of office, personal enrichment, favoritism, use of or misuse of community resources. Instead, they should always ask themselves, how can I leave this community better than I met it? That's a question. So, principle number 2, institutions have responsibilities too. We're saying the institutions that you serve also have responsibility. What are they? Many communities mistakenly believe that because leaders are volunteers, the institutions owes them nothing. In other words, because you're serving your community through your development association, the community believes that they owe you nothing. After all, you're the one that brought yourself to serve. That is not correct. So this is neither sustainable nor responsible. It is not sustainable that you keep asking people to serve, but there's nothing in it for them. And I'm going to explain it. A responsible community development institution, or which you people call community development association, should provide the following for the officials to be able to serve, to enable its volunteer leaders to be able to serve effectively with joy. Number 1, it should provide official communication channels. It should provide meeting facilities. It should provide secretarial support. It should provide approved operational budgets. What we are saying here that you do not set up a community development association or committee. You don't give them what to work with. Nobody sends somebody to farm. Say, go and farm. You don't give the person the tools to farm. You don't give him hoe. You don't give him, just go and farm. Unfortunately, this is what happens. Sometimes you say because you appoint them as a committee, you ask them to form, then you say go and work. Nothing to work with. And if they don't do well, you return and say they did not serve well. That is not done. Nobody sends anybody to farm without giving them tools. So what are you also going to do? The Community Development Association should provide reimbursement for authorized expenses. In other words, if a volunteer leader uses his or her money to serve, to provide services, what I mean by providing service, that means to run the affairs of that particular institution, he is entitled to reimbursement if he wants to, provided the expenses is approved or is authorized. If the person say, pay me back for what it cost me to transport myself from so place to so place in executing community development work, he can receive that money back if he wants to. Because, as I said, nobody goes to war at his own expense. Now, if the person does not want to ask for it, that is okay. But if he asks for it, there's nothing wrong in paying him back, because you're not paying him salary. You are giving him so please, this is very, very important. Now, we're also saying that Community Development Association should provide records and documentation. What the leaders you use, you should provide it. You should provide access to information. And as I talked about, reasonable working tools. You should be able to, the institution, a community development association should be able to provide reasonable working tools to enable the volunteer leaders to serve effectively. The important thing we are saying here is that nobody should go to war at his own expense. This is very important. So let's take a look at the key principle of volunteer leadership. The key principle, volunteer leadership. That is I've talked about principle number 1, principle number 2. I want to explain a little more about the issue of the issue of principle number 2, which is what institutions have to do, the responsibility of institutions towards the volunteer leaders. Now the principle is this: volunteer leaders should not receive salaries simply because they are working. They should not receive salaries simply because they serve, but they should not be expected. So volunteer leaders should not receive salaries simply because they serve, but they should not be expected to finance the institution from their personal resources. They should not be expected, but if they choose to do so, it is out of their volition. It is not mandatory. And if they do not spend, they should not be accused of not spending because This clarity is so important because sometimes volunteer community leaders, there's so much expectation is put upon them, and then they are not able to deliver, and they are accused of not serving the community. That is not correct. So, as I said, there's something in the Bible, and some of us can read it. First Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7. If you read the Bible, it's important. The Apostle Paul said, "Who serves as a soldier at his own expense?" In other words, nobody goes to war at his own expense. That's what I've been saying. Now, this principle reminds us that institutions have a duty to provide what is necessary for effective service. Institutions have responsibility to provide the tools that it wants the people to serve to work with. So even Proverb teaches us that in all labor there's profit. Even when you serve, there's profit of serving the public. Recognition, very important. Sometimes you don't give people, but you recognize them. When they have served well, recognize them. Let the community recognize that these people have served us well. Recognition is profit, is social status. Social recognition is important. You may not have to give them money. So this is important. So while volunteer service is motivated by purpose rather than profit, institutions should ensure that volunteers are not unnecessarily burdened by avoidable personal costs. We should not allow those who volunteer to serve to die because they are volunteering. So principle number 3, distinguishing support from personal benefit. Now we are saying that institutional support should never become personal enrichment. Institutional support should never become personal enrichment. Let me explain what it means. Examples of legitimate support include transport reimbursement, communication allowances where approved, official working materials, training opportunities, accommodation during authorized assignments, meals during official engagement. Let me explain this. For example, you are taking this course right now. Assuming this course is being held for you at a location where you are residential, and you attend this course for 3 days. You don't pay with your money to come and attend this training. The institution they are going to serve is supposed to pay for you to attend this training. That's what we are saying. And if you transport yourself to the venue where you're taking this training, the institution that you're serving is supposed to pay you transport reimbursement. These are things, training opportunities. It is the institution you serve that provide you those trainings, pay for you to attend those trainings, so you can have more skills, more exposure to serve well. But if you choose to do those things by yourself, that is because you chose. But the right thing is that because you're volunteering, you are supposed, certain things the institution you're serving must provide for you. That is the give and take. That is the way it's supposed to be. So support becomes inappropriate when leaders use the community resources for private benefit or without accountability. What we're saying here that don't use the opportunity of transport reimbursement. If you spend 20,000 naira to transport yourself from one place to the other, you go and ride and you spend 100,000. That's where the problem is. We are not saying that because you spend 20,000, which you can ask for reimbursement, you use the opportunity to now make it 100,000. That is using this opportunity for personal enrichment. That is the problem. That's where it is. So that's what we talk about integrity. If you spend 20,000 naira to run the office, ask for 20,000 naira back if you want to. But don't use the opportunity to inflate it. That's what we mean by distinguishing support from personal benefit. Now, there are examples of expenditure you should take note of. Every expenditure should be budgeted, should be authorized, should be documented, should be transparent, and should also be auditable. That means it can be audited. This is very important. So let's take a look at principle number 4. We talked about the 5 principles of volunteer leadership. Number 4 says preventing leadership burnout. Preventing leadership burnout. What do we mean by burnout? Many capable leaders quietly withdraw because they become they withdraw. They say, I am tired, because they become financially exhausted. They have used their money to do everything, so they are tired. So they quietly withdraw. All these things happen in communities because we put too much pressure on the leader. He want to use his money to travel from here to here, and if he does not have money to do that, that particular assignment is stored. And if the assignment is not held, you now hear this leader is not doing well because it is not providing the tools. So some leaders become financially exhausted, so they withdraw. They become burnout. They become emotionally drained. They are drained because they are giving us so much and so little is coming in. They are unsupported. You don't support them financially, materially, all kinds of information, availability. You don't support them. So you want them, you think that they are superhuman beings. Volunteer community leaders are not superhuman beings, and they can be overburdened. You can imagine someone living in Lagos, and there are issues that to be dealt with in the village, and his attention is required in the village. Who pays the transportation for him to go from Lagos to Abuja to the village? Who pays for that? If he does that 2 times, what will he tell his family? So if the association does not have the capacity to take care of that, it means the association is not ready to function. That is where the association must be able to have money to enable its leaders do the job, not because it wants to pay the leaders. This is very important. So we are saying that a healthy institution protect their volunteers. Healthy institutions protect their volunteers, because without your volunteers, you cannot do the work you want to do. Without your volunteers, because you cannot even afford paid staff, these volunteers you're not paying salary, you still have to provide them tools and resources to work. If they were employed, you still provide them the tools to work and you still pay them salary. But they are excusing their salary, now provide them tools to work. This is very, very important. So we are saying that healthy institutions protect their volunteers by doing a number of things. Number one, you share responsibilities. The institution will take its own, the volunteer will take his own. Building committees. You build committees so that the work is not on few people alone. The responsibilities are shared. Different people come into work, not just the elected executives. There are committees that are handling different things. Responsibilities are shared. Assignments are shared. The burden is shared. Then, of course, encouraging teamwork. Institutions encourage teamwork. And then recognizing contributions. When people have served well, have made let them be recognized. Even in the community, let there be annual recognition event in the community where you serve those where you recognize those who have served. Recognition is so important. And of course, respecting personal and family time. You cannot say because somebody is volunteering, he will leave his family and abandon his family to be doing community work. It's not done. Your family is your first priority. Then if you have to do that, you take permission from your family, and your family receive the blessing of your family to go and serve the community. You don't leave your family to go and serve the community and return to nothing. We're also saying that healthy institutions protect their volunteers by providing encouragement and mentorship. Provide encouragement and mentorship. For instance, now, this particular FLED Institute can provide mentorship to your community development association over time so that you can do much more than you're doing right now. We are saying that sustainable initiatives care for those who serve. Those who serve need to be served. Those who serve need to be taken care of. And when we are talking about taking care of, we're not asking that they need to be paid salary. But there are certain tools and opportunities that they need to have to ginger them, to support them, to keep doing volunteering their time. Number 5 principle of volunteer leadership. Building institutions that outlasts leaders. We need to build institutions or associations that outlast leaders. So volunteer leadership is temporary. In other words, somebody serves for eternal and he goes. Institutions should be permanent. Institutions must be permanent. Therefore, every executive should leave behind something. Every executive that is serving must leave behind something, such as stronger governance systems. We've been talking about governance systems. Stronger or better documentation. Improved financial discipline. And we talk about financial discipline, that this is one of the reasons why you don't get financial support, because people don't know what to use the money to do. So they are not excited to provide support. We are talking about trained successors. As they are training you, prepare to train those who succeed you. As they are training you, prepare to train those who will succeed you. And then a clear vision. You must have a clear vision. You leave a clearer vision of the union or the association that you met it. Clearer vision, clearer vision. So success is not measured by how indispensable a leader becomes. You know, this leader, without him we can't succeed. No, without him, that he has worked so much that even if he lives now, if he lives to be a president or to a financial secretary, the association will collapse. That is not leadership. You should be able to build the capacity of other people so that when you're leaving, or even more stronger people, more qualified people come in to take the association to the